Hey, welcome to the Total Connector show. I'm the host of the Total Bitcoin podcast show. I'm the Total Connector. My name is Keyvan Davani, and I want to talk about hyperinflation, inflation, and especially in connection with this really gorgeous website that two guys set together, whom I actually, one of them, I interviewed them once. It's Ben Prentice, and the other one is under a pseudonym name on Twitter, Heavily Armed Clown. So, so I'm going to talk about this in a few seconds, and see you soon. All right, welcome back. I want to talk about inflation, hyperinflation, and especially in connection with this website that Ben Prentice and the other pseudonymous guy on Twitter, Heavily Armed Clown, put up and a while ago, and it went very viral. It's a great, it's a pretty simple, and pretty crystal clear elucidation, or what do you call it, enlightenment of what the fuck happened, since 1971, since the United States under Nixon, called Nixon shock, went off the gold standard. And just looking at the graph, just looking at the factual numbers, it becomes so clear what kind of disaster has been unfolding, since 1971. And for example, let's just start with this one. Growth in productivity and hourly compensation since 1948. You see here that pretty clear, it really needs no sophisticated explanation. It's just self-explanatory. Productivity went up 246%, compensation plus 115%, and some of the charts. You can look it up for yourself, but I just thought I'd point that out to you if you're not familiar with this website or at all with the gold standard, which we had, sort of a gold standard, because after the Second World War, Bretton Woods Agreement, it was at least we had some kind of backing with gold, or under the gold, or with the gold standard. So the dollar was tied after the Second World War. The dollar got tied to the gold, and at a specific rate. I think it was like around $35 per ounce. And all the other currencies were then tied back to the dollar again. So, and then all of a sudden, 1971, Nixon just, made a public announcement, and they went off the gold standard. And since then, you can see, what kind of disaster has been unfolding and evolving. Income gains widely shared in early post-war decades, but not since then. Let me see. Real GDP per capita median. Let me see. Yeah, for example, you see Consumer Price Index United States 1775 to 2012, and as you can see here, World War I, World War II, and then 1971 off the gold standard, and you see how the consumer prices skyrocketed vertically. What else? Suspension here, you can see again. You can just Google it for yourself. Also, the graphs are publicly accessible. What I find really interesting is this one. Let me see. The number of divorces that because it had, of course, a social a massive social impact on relationships, on the pressure, the prices went up, got everything, people got into debt, and so this is, August 1971. Nixon ends the U.S. gold standard. Income inequality in U.S. This is where, for example, 1913 was the establishment of Federal Reserve in the United States. Then there was the gold standard, Bretton Woods. What was that, like around 45, I guess, until 1971, and then it was just then from 71 just pure fiat money, nothing backed by nothing. This is that's the problem with today's people. I think most people, if you they just did a survey in the United States or elsewhere, and people think that money is backed by gold or whatever. So there is no backing. There is nothing. It's backed by debt, right? It's a debt-based fiat money system. U.S. net wealth shares, federal debt held by the public, gross federal debt held by public as percent of gross domestic product. This is, you can see also here clearly, all sectors, debt, securities, and loans, liability went straight up from 1971. And this is like the most, most obvious example for U.S. national debt from 1900 to 2020. I mean, just look at that, all right? You see 1971 off the gold standard, and boom, it just went vertically. I mean, like a arrow, like a bullet. New Deal, Bretton Woods, suspension of gold standard, federal surplus or deficit, right? United States personal savings rate, went down. Net saving as a percentage of gross national income. I mean, just look at that. I mean, just amazing how exponential it's just drop. U.S. merchandise trade balance, United States goods trade balance, amazing. And social impacts, divorce rates went skyrocketed, incarceration rate of inmates, right? I mean, it's a whole, it's a corporate prison system on top of that. I'm not sure whether most people know that, but it's it's industrial. It's an industrial prison complex actually. That's on the stock exchange. So it's corporate. Federal jurisdiction per 100,000 population, straight up. I mean, just unbelievable. Share of 25 to 29-year-olds living with parents and grandparents went exponentially up. Divorce prevalence from 1950 to 2016. Look at that. Just look at that. And it's just so obvious. From 1971 up. It's crazy. So these are the guys on Twitter. If you want to follow them or donate some Satoshis to them, Mr. Cool BP. His name is Ben Prettis. The other guy is Heavily Armed Clown with his pseudonym name. So what I was gonna say is that inflation is coming one way or another. I mean, history is repeating itself. It's fiat, and any fiat money that you could look back at historically, they never survive more than approximately plus minus 100 years or much less. Or I don't know whether the British pound is sort of the record keeper. It doesn't matter. But the way we're talking, we're not talking about millions or billions anymore. We're talking about trillions and trillions and trillions being printed out of thin air with a physically, this whole cat and mouse game between Treasury and Fed, and now the Fed buying all kinds of bonds, corporate bonds and commercial papers and all kinds of loans and debt and debt and debt and debt over debt. So there is no way. I mean, it's very simple. It's debasement of the currency. It's devaluation. It's the destruction, and from here on, I mean, it's going to be an exponential destruction of lives, of livelihoods, of existence, of purchasing power. Right? So if this is not the right time to buy into Bitcoin and auto-accumulate, AutoDCA, auto-dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, I don't know when is the time. I mean, you got to start now. You should have started yesterday. We should have all started years ago, right? But it doesn't matter because the saturation point is going to take a while till I mean, people are talking, even economists who have who just don't understand the essence and the architecture of the monitor, and the monetary properties of Bitcoin, and what is money, what is hard money, what is hardest money, and the price volatility is part of the price formation, of part of the monetary evolution. So, but the point is, Bitcoin is the hardest money, and fiat is actually no money. Actually, it's just a currency. It's just because of its it's protected by military-industrial complex and by and based on debt, and so it's really important to understand. I think for the people who come in touch for the first time with Bitcoin, like a lot of us, like myself, we never heard about Austrian Economics, and even economists, students, or other people, scholars from university, they said they never learned anything about, maybe a couple of hours of Hayek or whatever, but we never learned like rational, logical reasoning or principles of what is, what of economics, of Austrian economics, of what is money, where does it come from, how is it created. So a lot of irrational things that we've been, indoctrinated, brainwashed with. And now it's time to unwind all this bullshit and really just flush it down the toilet and really start from the scratch and start, sowing. The seeds have been sown many years ago, 2009 with Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever that was, whatever that was, or how many people there were, doesn't matter. So now we have, a money that is totally decentralized, immutable, censorship resistant, unconfiscatable. It has all the monetary properties that we would have ever dreamt of, all right? And it's absolutely scarce. There's no more than 21 million. It's rooted in the code, right? The validation, the verification is decentralized. There is no control. That's the whole point of Bitcoin, is to take away the control of money. Nobody controls the money. We all then control. We are all in control of our own money, and that is Bitcoin then. Because there will be no dilution, no manipulation, no more fraud, no more systematic theft, no more systematic legalized criminality as we have in the central banking governmental debt fiat-based system. It's time we move on as a human civilization. And, we shall never forget why we're doing this, why Bitcoin. Because hopefully one day we're not going to ever talk about money anymore, because it's going to be part of our flesh and blood and hearts and soul and understanding and comprehension processes. And we're just going to create, we're going to trade, we're going to as Elon Musk said recently in one of the in his last Joe Rogan appearances, he said, with a very, very, very serious face, he said, if you don't make stuff, there is no stuff. Alluding to, it was in connection with the whole COVID-19, whatever, hysteria and the whole manipulation of data and the WHO, CDC, and all this bullshit that's now coming to the surface, all the lies and corruption and manipulation and the pharmaceuticals and all these political games that are being played and the totally irresponsible action that's been taken with the lockdowns and what have you. I mean, totally irresponsible. I mean, how many people die every year from the flu, right? How many people, right? Is it at least hundreds of thousands of even like 1 or 2 million? Like, it's been, if you go back years or decades ago, how many people, died of all kinds of viruses and flus and epidemics and pandemics and what have you? Did we close down the economies? It was just irrational. The people who are most at risk, the elderly people, the elderly with respiratory diseases, heart disease, whatever, they should have been isolated from beginning, protected, nurtured, and taken care of. And do a systematic testing and research but what did they do? They took some kind of stupid code that was like at least 10 or 15 years old from a stupid British guy who just got totally compromised now because he went during the lockdown to his girlfriend who was by the way married, and all this, and then he apologized and back and forth. So that was the code that he sort of developed. I don't know what university he was from. I guess it's Imperial College, whatever, or some kind of university in England, in Great Britain. And that was sort of used after still 10 to 15. There's no open source, nothing to verify, to check, through experts. And it took, it was taken as a model for these like super high projections of how many, whatever, millions of people are going to die and blah, blah. So it's crazy. We live in crazy times, and we have a criminal structure, but nobody wants to talk about it. And I wish, and it's really time. We're gonna talk about this soon with Stephanie von Jan soon, and I'm gonna have Thorsten Polleit on my show back again. I want to talk about the question of legitimacy. People like to always remind us of all kinds of historical, catastrophes and horror stories and this and that. But when we think about, the monetary system, the control system, the central banking system, the governmental structures, the military, industrial, corporate, financial complex, we never talk about where do they derive their legitimacy from? I mean, when people go to the voting booth, as I used to in Austria many years ago, still, but I'm not going voting anymore because I'm not in no way whatever do I want to support and really do I really want to support these structures, right? Because it's just a game. It's just there's just a bunch of puppets and parties and political puppets, and back and forth is they're playing a game, and who is suffering at the end of the day? Who's got to pay the bill? Who's got to pay the taxes? Right? Seigneurage, rent seeking. So I think it's important for every one of us to together with all the people who are rational, logical, real experts, knowledgeable, bring them all together, connect the dots, and give people the why, they understand the question why we're doing this, what are the root causes, what is the bigger picture, why is this system, this criminality actually tolerated or what, or legitimized? Did I go to the voting booth and give my vote to the central banks to devalue my money or your money? What about the tax system? How transparent is that? Who do you think is profiting from all this? The stock market, if you look at the stock market, is totally detached from reality. And we've got an unemployment rate now in the United States of approximately somewhere between 25 and 30%. It's higher than the unemployment rate during the Great Depression in the 1930s. And we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg. This is just the beginning, right? So that's why we need to create fundamentally new architecture. And we just need to use it to go into action, to human action. We need to understand the root causes. And what do? Sure, if you want to buy gold, go ahead. Buy gold. Why not? Okay, it's a store of value, whatever. With its still, valid relative scarcity. But what are we going to do? It's not out of the it's not that it's, technology is, as I had my interview with Jeff Booth, the author of Price of Tomorrow, you should definitely read it, Why Deflation is the Key to an Abundant Future. He says deflation, and technology, exponential technology, is like a gravity, and government, central banks cannot fight against it. So we're going to have eventually deflation one way or another, meaning we're going to pay lower and lower prices. And we've been so indoctrinated, so brainwashed about the term deflation and inflation, and we need inflation. Yeah, it's good, and we need to spend and aggregate spending, and go into debt, and we got to throw in more money created out of thin air into the economy. It's like they think it's a fucking engine or whatever, or like a train that you just put the coil inside and just burns and burns and burns. No, it's, the money is like the fundamental price signal. It's just economics 101. The money needs to be neutral, right? It needs to be scarce, if not, like Bitcoin, absolutely scarce. And that's never been done in human history or monetary evolution. So this is why, it's so important that we all understand, we begin to comprehend where does the money come from, what happened, especially what the fuck happened in 1971 when United States went off the gold standard, or the world actually. Because the dollar is the dominant international reserve currency, they can do all kinds of stuff and create interdependencies and protect it with the military industrial complex and go to war. Well, how do you think wars are financed? All these misery and pain and suffering and all the deaths and millions of people dying, just look at how many people died in the 20th century. I don't have the number in my, off the top of my head, but I think it's around 200 or maybe 250 million people. It's mind-boggling. How do you think these wars, who paid for these wars, And we all want to have a good, prosperous, abundant life. That's also what Jeff Booth always emphasizes. A world of abundance. And we can all have that. It's just beyond our, most people's comprehension, imagination, that we can, with the ethical, logical, rational money, the hardest and scarcest money, a real sound economics, based on supply and demand, where people like Elon Musk or whatever, whoever, or Jeff Booth or, all these entrepreneurs come together and they create, they produce, and people benefit, from these exponential technological innovations, whether it be 0 to 1 or 1 to many, to quote Peter Thiel. But we need a sound monetary system. We need a healthy money, a sound money, something that nobody, nothing, can manipulate it, can dilute it, can confiscate it or stop it or whatever. And this is what, just let us think for a moment. It's super centralized. The fiat money, the monetary system is like super centralized by centralized entities that have no political, first of all, no political, they're politically untouchable. They're legally not liable in any shape or form. And they're criminally immune. Black and white on paper. Just look at the statutes or whatever, or the treaties. The territory within the territory, the Bank of International Settlements within Switzerland. It says, in the statute, it says the members have they have immunity, right? Civil and criminal immunity, and they can do anything. It just doesn't matter, they're just above law. Did you ever give? And we are all affected by that. They control the lives and the existence and the economies and the livelihoods of literally 8 billion people. Of course, if you can branch down, and you got all the financial institutions and corporate financial institutions and structures and architecture, but it's all centralized, right? But that's why the pyramid, because that's why it's all called Cantillon effect. The people who profit first of all from the freshly printed money are the ones at the top, that are really tightly interconnected with the tip of the of the pyramid, of the power pyramid, and then it takes time till it trickles down. And until it reaches the people somewhere down there, the slaves actually. We're all slaves, right? Then it has lost like exponentially in value. We don't really understand the real inflation rate. We're all being like duped and deceptive. It's a whole deception. It's really a total deception, because because the inflation rate is somehow measured with a basket of product specific, like basket, like a consumer price index, right? So they put all, like very arbitrarily some products and services, but not really, that's why, all these prices of housing, of medical stuff, and went up exponentially, especially in the United States. Look at all these people that went to college, university. I mean, they're all in debt. They're massively in debt. So yeah, it's time now to start buying some Bitcoin, get yourself a hardware wallet, and just accumulate. Start accumulating. Take care of your security. Learn how to maybe even one day run your own full node. It's a progression level, right? So you buy it on exchange, put it on a mobile wallet, and from mobile wallet, if it's like a small fraction of Bitcoin, and then you transfer it directly. Always never leave it on exchange, always on your mobile wallet at least, or your hardware wallet, and then eventually you'll run your own full node, and we're all going to be like our own self-sovereign Bitcoin citizens, like self-responsible, self-sovereign people, right? And so we can all validate and verify every transaction ourselves. You're not going to be dependent anymore on any kind of third-party intermediaries, server, or whatever provider. That's the whole point of a full node. So you're totally self-sovereign. All right, that's about it with my rant today. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Telegram. It's all in the show notes. I would really appreciate if you subscribe to my channel on YouTube, or on my podcast platform, or on my website, KeyvanDavani.com, or simply TheTotalConnector.com. If you want to sponsor me, my interviews, my shows, my email address is hello@TheTotalConnector.com. This is my my Twitter handle is Keyvan Davani, and take care of yourself, take care of your privacy, your security, and your monetary value, and your future. And we can have a beautiful, human civilization on every level you can imagine of. I have to repeat that every time, on, not only monetary, economical, and financial, but social, scientific, technological. We're going to have more freedom, less work. For the first time, people are going to be able to work maybe 10-15 hours a week in a job that they really love to do, and the rest of the time they can do creative stuff, they can do research, they can invent something. People are going to be fairly compensated, whether it be inventors, engineers, scientists, technologists. We're going to benefit from all these technologies, not only like information technologies, artificial intelligence, and all this robotic whatever, but I'm like, what about energy? Let's get off of the burning fuel and combustion engines. It's time, after more than 100 years, it's time to really jump into another transport vehicle. I'm not talking about Elon Musk, whatever, with his electric cars, beautiful, but we need a different form of first of all, energy efficient technologies and transport vehicles, whether it be for the beginning, drones, or plasma technology, subnuclear technology, or hydrogen technologies. All these technologies that have either been seized in the name of national security, or hidden, or in the closet, or just secretly developed within the military-industrial corporate complex. It's possible. It's right here. We just need to go into action, individually, self-responsibly, with total self-sovereignty, and learn and understand and share this knowledge, please. Get yourself the books, get yourself Bitcoin Standard by Safed and Amuz. There's so many others, Knut Svanholm, Jan Pritzker, Kalle Rosenbaum. There's so many. I'm sorry if I don't have them in memory right now, all of them. But there's just so many articles, so many books, so many podcasts in English and or German, which I also sometimes do. You know, like last time with last interview I did with Stephanie von Jan. So check it out on my YouTube channel, on my podcast platforms. So thanks so much again, and let's go and really create a new human civilization. And you know, Bitcoin is the key, is the root key to this you know, new paradigm shift, you know, transformation. All right. My name is Keyvan Davani. I'm the Total Connector. And yeah, see you soon again. Thank you so much for your support and for listening.